Welcome to our final episode of our Black History Month 2021 special series. Today we will speak with the iconic Bishop Vashtai Murphy Mckenzie. In 2000, Bishop Mckenzie was the first woman to be elected as bishop in the AME Church, with so many additional firsts to follow. So as we transition from Black History Month into Women's History Month, we thought it would be appropriate to sit down with this trailblazer to soak in a few soul-soothing pearls of wisdom. Without further ado, the NBLE Project's Ask an Elder.
My name is Kiera Smith, and I'm a senior at Dickinson College, International Business and Chinese double major. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Bishop Vashtai Murphy Mckenzie, who is right here with me. A little bit about her. Bishop Vashtai Murphy Mckenzie serves as the 117th elected and consecrated bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Her historic election in the year 2000 represents the first time in the over 200-year history of the AME Church a woman had obtained the level of episcopal office. The first continue as she served as the first woman president of the Council of Bishops, chair of the General Conference Commission, and was the first woman host bishop for the 49th session of the General Conference of the AME Church in June 2012, with more than 30,000 in attendance. You heard that right. Her husband, Dr. Stanley Mckenzie, serves with her as Episcopal Supervisor. Bishop Mckenzie, well known as an electrifying preacher, has been honored for her leadership, community service, and outstanding achievements by a number of diverse civic, educational, business, and governmental organizations and leaders. She was named in 2015 by Huffington Post as one of the 50 most powerful women religious leaders in the world. So without further ado, I present to you Bishop Vashtai Murphy Mckenzie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kiera, and thank you for inviting me to this table. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. So I have a number of questions lined up for you today, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your namesake and your relation to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother, Vashtai Turley Murphy, is one of the 22 stellar founders of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. And she was a student, of course, at Howard University. And, the rest is history, how the sorority grew from those 22 women to now 300,000 women worldwide, with chapters everywhere, whether they are collegiate, whether they're international chapters in like Japan, Dubai, even Dubai in Germany, or in the United States and other places. So it is a sorority of predominantly African-American women who are college graduates who provide service in a variety of areas, whether it's education, children, colleges, men, healthcare, mental health care, a variety of the 5-point plan all around the world.
That was a beautiful answer. Thank you. And so as I was doing research, I discovered that you come from a prominent Baltimore, Maryland family. Can you describe your childhood and how did your family's newspaper enterprise influence you?
Well, I was just really blessed to grow up in a family where leadership, public service, social justice engagement was very, very important. And so when I talk to people who don't, where leadership and public engagement and social justice, and I go like, wow, because for me, it was the rule and not the exception. So the Afro-American newspaper, over 100 years old, 100 and plus years old now, was really the brainchild of my great-grandfather. He wanted a place where all 10 of his children could work and where there would be no one who would call him by his first name. In other words, there would be dignity and respect. It was a very brave and a very bold move because only 0.5% of persons in Baltimore City, Black persons, were able to read. So that meant then you're going to publish a newspaper where somebody most likely is going to have to read it to somebody else. But it was the only place where our news was, where you knew who was married, who died, what businesses, what important social engagements and functions educational engagement, political engagement. Our stories were being told on the pages of the Afro-American newspaper from the late 1800s all the way up to the present day. And so, as the story goes, he borrowed $250 of his wife's butter and egg money.
Wow.
So that's something on the side, and we call that entrepreneurship today. But that's something on the side, that butter and egg money, to purchase the equipment to take what he was doing in the basement of Bethel AME Church, the Sunday School Helper that was being published, into the Afro-American newspaper, to a journalist enterprise. That Baltimore edition spread to the Washington Afro-American newspaper, and at one time was the largest published Black weekly newspaper in the United States, with editions all through the South and all the way up to New England. So we're a business family, and we're still in business today. My cousins are still running the newspaper, and of course it's in a digital format now. Of course, it's in a digital format and still is read by people all over the world. Oh, you can get it. Yes, you can. You can get it in the paper format, and it's delivered in the mail. So you can go to afro.com. My cousins would call me and say, "You didn't tell people where to find it. Just go to afro.com and you'll be able to find the newspaper."
Y'all heard what she said. She gave you the website. So wow, I'm okay. That is so inspirational. Another thing I knew is that I understand that you attended Eastern High School, which at the time of your attendance had recently been desegregated in the wake of Brown versus Board of Education. So how was it being one of the 6 African American women that were at the high school at the time?
That was my second school. My first was my elementary school. I was in the 5th grade. In the 5th grade, then they said, well, you're going to a brand new school, and it's called integration. So my 6th grade was spent at a brand new elementary school for 1 year, and then I went to Eastern High School. Wow. So in my middle school experience, it was, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it's about as close as traumatic as you could be. You can imagine, I walked to school. I lived 2 blocks from my elementary school. It was school number 104, and above the 104 was a cement banner. In other words, it was built into the school, colored school number 9.
Wow.
So I went to colored school number 9, school number 104, and I walked to school, which meant if I had to be to school by 9 o'clock, 8:30, I just, roll out, walk down the street. Now, all of a sudden, I had to be at the school bus stop at 6 a.m.
in the morning
to go across town to kids who got out of bed at 8 and walked to school. So that was, a bit different. It was like being immersed into a new culture of ways that were different. The way we speak language, our code words, our slang, all of that was different, from a community that was being very supportive. My school principal was a Sunday school teacher. We were all in this wonderful community where your teachers and your leaders, we're all, in the same community together. So you had people who looked out for you, who supported you, who believed in you, to go into a classroom where people thought, you don't know anything. Why are you here? Why we got to know you? Why you, da, da, da. And you have to start at the bottom and you have to work your way up to the top. So in high school, you come into the high school, there were certain things you were used to doing. Like Mrs. Swan was my next door piano teacher. So she taught me piano. And so you get to this new school that says, oh, well, we only have, there's only one piano, and we already have somebody to play it. Okay, so in order for you to participate in the music department, you're going to have to take a musicianship a form. It's like a test to see if you have any musical ability. Doesn't matter that you've been taking lessons since you were a little girl. You're going to have to take this little test. And they were surprised that I was able to pass the test. So they said, choose your instrument. I said, piano. Right. We already have a piano player, so why don't you learn the flute? So I learned the flute. And you want to play, you play. And so it was a place where I found, for the second time in my life, where I had to prove that I had a right to be there, that I had the gifts to be there, right. And I didn't want my personhood to be denied. I didn't want my personhood, and so sometimes in order to understand, who did not respect your humanity was often not understood, because kids come to school with the perceptions that they learn from their parents or they learn from community and society. And all of those perceptions about Black and brown bodies were not very positive. Were not very positive. But still, as a grown woman, when you start going out into the work world that is multi-generational and multi-ethnic, you still have to prove that you have a right to be there, and that you have the gifts to be there. And then, as an adult, there's another caveat that's added to that. Not that you have a right to be there and you have the gifts to be there, but then you have to be better than the best person for the job in order to be considered for the job that you have.
Right.
And so every day, when I was campaigning in our denomination, you're not just selected to be bishop, you have to campaign and to be voted on by delegates that come to the general conference. So a part of my campaign, I said, the lion wakes up and the lion says, I have to be faster than the fastest gazelle if I'm going to eat today. But the gazelle gets up and says, I have to be faster than the fastest lion in order to live. So I got to be faster than the fastest predator. I have to be faster than the fastest oppressor. I have to be faster if I'm going to live. And so there's a line in a poem by Audre Lorde who says, come celebrate with me that something that would have killed me failed.
Wow. I think that really resonated with me, because oftentimes in the classroom, you'll hear people say that was so far ago, or that was so long ago. And like, this is something that you've experienced in your lifetime. And my grandfather was also born in 1923. So I've heard lots of stories from him, which have, unclouded a bias that I would have had being born in the 21st century. And so I just try to hear as many stories like this as possible to stay informed, because this is a reality and it's not something you can hide away from, but it is something that you can learn from. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I will remember that quote.
Yes. Look it up. What we say today is that was so long ago. It is not so long ago.
At all.
And since George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin, it is still true today.
Exactly.
I believe that there were segments in the 21st century where we lived in fantasy land, where we thought that this is a post-racial society. Yay, we don't. No, we are still in it, because every generation has to cross its own Red Sea.
Absolutely.
Every generation has to get to the other side of atrocity. Every generation must continue to build on the foundation that was left by the previous generation, and to be sure that that all of us can be free, and we have civil rights, and we have voter rights, and we have all those other things that we take for granted because we didn't have to actually fight for. And now we're in positions where we have to fight for these things again, because if we do take it for granted, it will slip away. It will slip away. Power does not concede itself willingly.
At all. And I think, especially when I'm thinking about the classroom, like there's still a lot of instances where I'm the only, not just African-American woman, but African-American in the classroom. And so sometimes when we have conversation and then I put that variable out there, it seems as if it's the first time that that's been something that they think about. And that's quite mind-boggling for me, because I'm like, this is something I always have to think about, because that's how I'm always viewed. But, that's definitely perspective that I think everybody should have.
Well, they're living in places where certain conversations are not being held, and certain misbeliefs are being perpetuated, and certain lies are being promoted. They just, your grandmother, my grandmother would say they would do better if they knew better. Right. And so it's in that context where you are being put where I've been put and sometimes are put again, where you're the only one that has to speak up for your race. And
Right.
then you're the only one that has to speak up for Black women. And other ethnic groups are not put in that position. When I speak my opinion in my own mind. I speak, hey, this is what I think, this is what, so forth. But when you speak, you're speaking for the entire Black race. You are speaking for all Black women. And that really is a very heavy burden to bear. I mean, it's like carrying the whole weight of your ancestors on your shoulders, because the grandma was going to expect me to speak up about this.
Right.
I can't be silent about this. No, I can't let this pass. I can't let this go. I can't let this be water that goes under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say something about it, because if I don't, there's no one else in my class. There's no one else on my job who's going to speak to this.
We could go on for that for the next 2 hours, so I'm going to just be quiet. But another thing I did find was that you obtained your BA in journalism from the University of Maryland. How was that experience?
I started out at Morgan State University, actually.
For history.
Started out at Morgan State University. I was a history major, not to be a teacher, but to be a researcher. Okay. And so history was, is one of my passions. At that time, I was really running from journalism, because if you grow up in a journalist family, everybody's expect you to be one.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute now, don't just don't expect that I'm going to be a journalist.
Right.
I ended up being one, but I mean, just don't expect. Just don't assume, that this is where my path is going to be, but it ended up being that way. So when I went to University of Maryland, I went to Morgan because I wanted to study under Benjamin Quarles, who was an eminent historian at the time. When I went to Maryland because they were offering courses that I wanted to take. They were in subjects that interest me. And there were more subjects there. Of course, I got married in between there, but
yes.
They were offerings that I wanted to do. So my decision for school was based on content. My decision for Morgan was like, I'm tired. I'm tired of holding up the bloodstained banner of my race and of my femininity. I'm tired, and I'm going to go to a school. With us's.
Right.
And enjoy myself.
Absolutely.
I'm going to learn, but I'm tired now. I'm tired. I need a break. It's integration fatigue.
Absolutely, yes.
And I had a whole lot of friends that did not go to historically Black colleges and universities, and I would invite them to come to homecoming. And they would come to homecoming and go like, wow, look at all these Black people. I've never seen this many Black people in one place. I said, yes, isn't it wonderful? But then I did choose to go to the University of Maryland. I wanted the subject matter. I thought the subjects there were going to enhance my career. It would expand my knowledge base. There were cost offerings that I didn't see in other places. And so I chose that. And in some respect, weren't you thrown back into the same area, the same kind of experience? A little, but it's different. I was a little bit older and I didn't live on campus. Right. And so I went to school, took my classes, and I went home. I wasn't going to the football games. I wasn't going to the basketball games. I wasn't participating in intramural sports. I went to get what I got.
That degree.
That was the degree, and to undergird my career, so that when you take a look at my resume, they go, "Oh, you took that." Oh, okay. It was, it was well rounded. But I tell you, the kind of support that I got from Morgan does not compare to the kind of support that I got at Maryland. It's not to say that I didn't, but there's just something about teachers who they're not just interested in teaching the discipline. They're not just interested in sharing the information. They're interested in you.
Right.
They're interested in you and interested in being sure that you're as well-rounded as you can be, which is why when it came time for me to go to seminary, I chose Howard University. I wanted to go to Howard School of Divinity. People say, well, why didn't you go to Yale? Why did you go to Harvard? I said, yeah, well, that was an option. But I am, I was going to be a preacher in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And so I wanted to be prepared by Kane Hopefelder, which was, who was an eminent, a fabulous, shall we say awesome, an awesome scholar, a New Testament scholar, one of the few African Americans who were writing in New Testament studies. And I wanted to take, Black theology. And I wanted to take, other kinds of courses that were grounded in the Black experience, because that's going to be predominantly my audience. And I wanted to be prepared for the people who I would be ministering and pastoring.
You explained where you got your bachelor's degree from. I was intrigued as to how your path to ministry materialized. Like, how did you decide to go to Howard for seminary school?
It's sort of something that is not that you chose it, it chose you. I was firmly in my career. I went from print journalism to broadcast journalism. I was in radio and enjoyed it. I was in Christian radio, in that framework, went into broadcast management, and was firmly believed that I was, that's going to be my chosen path. And I was moving up the ranks. I started out as on-air personality, became a program director, became operationals manager, became a general manager, talent on what they called Telstar back then, which we call satellite radio today.
I see.
And firmly believe I'm on my way to station ownership. I'm following in the footsteps of Kathy Hughes. Okay, I'm headed this way.
Right.
I'm headed this way, and all of a sudden, God taps you on the shoulder, because I believe that every believer has a responsibility. There is some service that you're supposed to render, and you got to figure out where your pulpit is. And I figured that my pulpit was in Christian broadcasting, and I was having a ball. In fact, it was such a way that you didn't have to pay me. I'd do it for free. I enjoyed it. It was right up my, it was right there for me. And communicating. I mean, you grew up in a communication family. That you communicating. And I did it every day, and it was wonderful, and I enjoyed it. But what began to happen, was that tap on the shoulder that tells you, there's more. I have more for you to do. Have more for you to do. And I'm going like, And listen, I have more for you to do. I said, what now? What? Why didn't you start this? Why didn't you tap me on the shoulder when I was 10 or 15 or 16? And well, you weren't ready then. Now you're ready. And it's called the Call to Preach. It is a very compelling call. It shuts out all the other calls on your life, and you begin to realize that everything that has happened in your life is a preparation for this moment. And so I said yes to the Lord. Yes. At first, I believe it was just to preach, and then it became to pastor, and now it's Episcopal service. And I stopped. I was in a graduate degree program at the University of Maryland. And I dropped out of that program and went to seminary at Howard University School of Divinity, and began to prepare myself for, at that moment, I thought was just to be the best preacher that I could be. But of course, seminary is required for ordination in our faith tradition. And so I just wanted to be the best preacher that I could be. If God wants me to do this, then let's be the best that you can. And then I just wanted to be the best pastor I could be to the people who would look to me for leadership. And then comes the call to the episcopacy. Wow. It is not a career decision. It is a call. You have to be called to do it, to bring your family through the process. For us, it's a campaign, it's election. There are disappointments, and there are great highs and great lows. And then to minister at the level of Episcopal service. So that means you're not just responsible for one church and for one neighborhood. You are responsible for hundreds of churches and hundreds of clergy families and so you're not just directing the ministry traffic of one congregation, you are directing the ministry traffic of a state. Like right now I'm in the state of Texas, but then before that I was in Tennessee and Kentucky. So trying to make an impact on 2 states. And before that I was in Africa and I had 4 countries.
Wow.
And you direct the ministry traffic of 4 countries. And so that is a daunting task, but it's a fulfilling one. You get to this point in life and realize that this is your call in life, and that you were called to do this, and I enjoy it.
Wow, thank you.
Now that there are problems and issues, but
Of
I
course,
enjoy
with
it.
anything,
And
yes.
mhm.
So get mind boggled every time. In 2000, you became the first female bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Mhm.
How was this experience, and why was it so important that the glass ceiling got broken and continues to get broken?
Well, somebody was going to do it, whether it was me or someone else, but that's not why I ran. As I said, it's a compelling call that you
Mhm.
realize that every ministry idea, everything that God is giving you is beyond the congregation where you are. So the collective banking group that came to us from DC, the Church Health Coalition, all the things that were happening were not just for my local congregation. It was for several churches, ecumenical churches, the churches in my neighborhood, and we worked together. So that's what a bishop does. It's you you are, yes, ministering to the sheep, but you're also ministering to shepherds.
Right.
So, I'm telling you, I said, I'm not running because no woman is in the position. I'm running because I believe I'm qualified. I
Absolutely.
have the experience. I believe I can make an impact and add value to the Council of Bishops and add value to an Episcopal district. And so don't elect me because I'm a woman.
Mhm.
Elect me because I'm qualified and I can lead an Episcopal district. And a majority of the delegates, hallelujah,
They agree.
agreed and then elected me. So it was not a walk in the park. People
Mhm.
say, well, you won the first time you ran. So, hey, you don't know the pain of running again and again until people, I said, oh, y'all, it wasn't a walk in the park. When
Right.
I announced my candidacy in 1996, I knew it was going to take 4 years, where most candidates may not announce until 2 years out. I announced 4 years out
Mhm.
because I knew it was going to take a minute before people will get into the position that they maybe, just maybe, a woman can do it, or maybe, just maybe, Mckenzie can do it.
Yeah.
So the conversation in '96 was, we don't believe a woman can do it. We don't think it's time. Y'all need to wait. Well, women have been waiting forever, but we need to wait. And then by 97, the conversation is, well, maybe, but not right now. Then you get to 99, well, maybe. And then you get to 2000, well, just maybe Mckenzie or someone else can do it, or maybe she can do it. So the lay organization, the AME Church, made a decision in '96 that they would support a resolution that a woman be elected in 2000. They presented that resolution to the General Conference, and that resolution failed.
Mm.
And so people came to me and said, well, Mckenzie, it ain't gonna happen, girl, it ain't happen, not gonna happen. Y'all just come back in 2024. Don't be disappointed. Just keep running. Just keep doing what you're doing, and it'll be all right. Well, they didn't see what I saw. In
Clearly.
order for the resolution to pass,
Mhm.
you need to have 800
Wow.
plus people to vote for it. 600 and some people voted for it. So what I saw was that 600 people were in favor of this.
Mm.
I only needed to convince
200.
200 more delegates to come onto our side.
Right.
And we just might make it. So what most people saw was that this was a failure. It was a loss. It's over. What I saw is that we really got a chance at this.
Exactly.
Because, there's a difference in trying to convince 800 delegates as you're trying to convince 180 or 200 delegates to come and vote on our side. So when the first ballot was taken, there were no winners. There were 4 of us that were at the top. And when the next ballot came, I was elected on the second ballot. I was elected number 2 out of a class of 4. Thank you, Jesus.
Right.
God knew, said, girl ain't gonna take it there. Girl ain't gonna take another round.
Right. That
you can imagine what it's like during a presidential election, a mayor, a senator election, a congressional representative, where you waiting that night for the vote count to come in. It's that same kind of intensity.
Anticipation yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I'm conceptualizing it as you're describing it to me, and I'm like, wow, like I'm internally sweating right now. This is like extremely stressful, but I'm so happy that you got selected because obviously you're amazing. But I read from a previous interview that you did that one of your favorite quotes is, "Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also unto him, and he will bring it on to pass." And I wanted to ask you, why is that one of your favorite quotes?
In my devotional reading one year, and I can't remember, it was very, very long time ago, I came across that particular verse. It's Psalm 37, verse 5. And so in my devotional reading, I came across the scripture and I said, let's try it out. Let's see what thing I can commit and see what the Lord will do with it. And the Lord did it. And ever since then, okay, God, I'm going to put this in your hands.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to work this out. I can't think my way out of this. There's no money out of this. There's nothing. There are no friends. There's no business or corporation. There's nothing going to be able to help us in this situation. I'm just going to put it into your hands. You understand what I'm saying? And so I'm going to commit myself to this. I'm going to commit my life to this. I'm going to commit my resources to this. I'm going to commit my family to this. And then I'm going to trust you that you're going to bring the good to pass, the thing that I'm looking for, the thing I'm praying for, and trust that you'll bring it to pass. And so everything just gets placed into the handbasket of God, everything. And then, like David says in another psalm, only thing I can do is just trust in you.
That's me with my thesis right now. That's the only thing I'm doing. So I resonate with that completely. I only have 2 more questions because I don't want to take too much of your time because it is truly valuable. Some people say you can't have a career and manage a family. Can you tell us about how you've been able to balance it all?
Well, many times people would say you can't have it all. And my response is you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. So you want to obey the season that you're in. That's what I wrote about in one of my books. Obey the season that you're in. But many times we're always looking to the next season before we get there. So I can't wait till I get out of school. I can't wait till I get out of this class. I can't wait till this dissertation is done. Does that sound familiar? Absolutely. I can't wait till I get to this, and I can't wait till I get to that. So that we're not fully participating in the season that we're in because we're always looking to the next season. So you participate in the season that you're in. I'm just starting out. I'm 22 and I'm just starting out, but I'm trying to live like I'm 40 and 50 years old.
No,
right? After I bought the car, bought the house, bought the dog, got it all furnished, got the car, got everything. I'm trying to live like I have put in 20 years of work somewhere. When I'm just starting out. I'm just starting out and I'm expecting to be the CEO.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to be chairperson of the board. Well, that may happen, but then again, if it don't happen, don't be upset. Just obey the season that you're in. So for instance, when our children were toddlers, there's certain things I didn't do because the season required my full physical, on hands, emotional, spiritual presence. Now, at this stage of life, I travel a whole lot more than I did when my kids were small.
Right.
I hardly ever, when they were tiny, ever went to preach a revival out of town. It was only when they started to get older. So now I travel a whole lot. Before COVID, I was in the air at least once a week.
Oh, wow.
Going somewhere, either to a church or to an area within, state of Texas is really big now. So going across my district or going somewhere else to minister. So, but when I was younger, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. So you obey the season that you're in. If you have small children, when my children were babies, when they're infants, I went to school. They said, "Why are you going to go to school?" I said, "Because they go to bed on time." They take naps. And so because they take naps, it means, in a 2-hour nap period, I read my chapters. And then when they go to bed early, like at 5:30 and 6 o'clock, then I'm writing my papers because I did my reading during the day. Exactly. And so that worked for me. It doesn't work that way for everybody. Doesn't work that way for everybody, but it worked for me. It worked for me. So, that worked out. And I have a great supportive husband who believes in what I do, and I believe in what he does. And the best part of our relationship is that we support each other. When he has a dream and an idea, I'm supporting him. And when I have an idea and a dream, he supports me. And so it's this mutual support society that helps us to not do it all at one time, but to do it all in incremental times. Many people talk about balance. What is the balance between work and life? Well, I said there's no such thing. What it is prioritizing. You have to prioritize what is important to you. What is the top priority? So what happens is, and we look for work-life balance, we do the opposite of what is important sometimes. Okay. So what is the most important thing? What do you need to do now? And what do you need to let rest? What you need to let rest and pick back up later on. When I went to seminary, I had to tell some organizations that I was participating. I said, "Look, I'll be back, y'all. I got to get this degree. I'll be right back." But I got to do this. I can't hang out with y'all. Because I got to get this work done. And this is a 3-year degree program, and I'm not trying to make it 4.
Absolutely.
So, you have to learn how to say yes to what you need to say yes to, and know what gets in the way to your yes. And sometimes it's not just things, it's people.
Yes. Please speak on it.
Yeah, well, there are people who are affirming and people who are draining. So affirming people will say, "Yeah, girl, you better get to class on time. Yep, you got to get this work done. Yeah, what? You need to you don't need to be out with us. You need to be getting ready for that interview tomorrow."
Right.
You understand? Girl, I know we want to eat out today. We want to get these shoes. We want to get this, but you need to save that money, because didn't you say you wanted to buy a house? Didn't you say you want to move to a different neighborhood? Didn't you say you were tired of public transport? You need to be with people who will affirm your dreams.
Absolutely.
And when you find yourself constantly being in relationships that are draining, that take away from you, that do not help you, you got to say, "No, girl, I love you. We've been best friends since kindergarten, but you need to put some distance between that, because if all you're hearing is, 'I don't know why you do that. I don't know why you need to do that. Why you got to go there? Why you do it? I don't understand why you do that.' Then what's going to happen is that you're going to start internalizing these negative messages that says, don't soar, don't grow, don't fly. I don't know why you go to school. You don't need no degree. Do what you need to do. You may not need to do the degree. I do. I do. As I tell people all the time, Why do you allow people to make you quit on your dreams from people who quit on theirs or people who have never dreamed at all? They don't want to go nowhere. They don't want to do nothing. And they're not going to support you in doing. Cut them loose. All y'all going to do is wake up one day at 30 and go like, dag. And you think all you do is rehearsing, I shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Instead of
I should have did that when I had the chance. I could have been so-and-so by now. I could be, I could be over there by now. My shoulda, woulda, couldas. Right? So try. All you can do is try. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. Then you pick yourself up and try again.
Absolutely.
And it happens, trust me, it happens at every age. It happens at your age. It happens at my age. In my capacity now, I do 8 conferences a year, 4 regionals and 4 statewide conferences a year.
Wow.
That means from start to finish. That means planning it, hotels, speakers, the direction, the theme, the whole 9 yards. It's planning 8 conferences a year. And I was at a convention, and a soror came up to me and said, Bishop, if you had your own conference, we'd come. I said, girl, it's in my heart. It's in my heart to do it. I know to do it, but there's no way I can add on conference number 9. Not happening.
No.
But I know you're over here, and but we just need to sit down and just have something so we can just all do it together. And I said, I know. And I have a passion for women. I have a passion for leadership. But when I became a preacher, a pastor, I pastored everybody, everybody, men and women. But that desire is still there. And every now and then God prods me to do it. And so I said, I don't see how I can do it. And so the soror said to me, she says, try. That's what I said, like, okay, fine. You've been telling her to try. Because if you make it, that'll be great. But if you don't, hey, the time will pass. The time's going to pass anyway, right? And so it's best to time the pass that you end up where you think you might be than the time to pass you didn't even try to get there.
Right.
And so that's how Sailor Leadership Encounter for Women was born. And for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been doing it, conference number 9. And then we added conference number 10 to be able to do that. But that's why you need to have people in your lives, whether they are coaches or mentors, who are affirming, who can see stuff in you and say, have you ever thought of? Because this really looks just like you, smells like you, acts like you. And maybe you just need to go in that direction and find out about it. What you got to lose?
Nothing really. So
nothing. And if it works out, fine. You're down the road a little bit. And if it doesn't work out, at least you tried. And from every try, whether it's a success or not the way you expect it to be, you learn things along the way. And it is the learning of the things along the way that will serve you in the next season of life. That's why you don't want to rush from one relationship to the next. You need to learn what happened in that relationship before you rush into the next one. So you don't blame the next relationship for what didn't work out in the last one. And while you try not to rush from one experience to the next, take some moment to reflect and figure out, what just happened here? What did I learn? What skills were sharpened? What wisdom did I pick up? What relationships do I need to maintain and to keep that may help me in the next season of my life?
Right there, right down. Because you just said every gem in the book. Let me see.
Writing it down is important. I know that when I was in my dissertation process, I chose to write about ancient African, ancient Greek, ancient Roman, ancient Hebrew women, colonial women. And the only way that I got a lot of this information is because the women kept diaries. And those diaries were later published. And if they hadn't kept their stories or shared their stories, or at least put their stories on paper, I wouldn't be able to write what I wrote in my dissertation. And so write it down. There's an old saying that if only the hunter tells the story, the hunted stories is never told. So you may not think your story is important, but there will come a time when people are going to want to know what your generation was thinking and doing and wrestling with. What you're doing now is history, and don't ever forget it. What you're doing now is history.
That, actually every question I've been about to ask you, you sort of alluded to. So that's wonderful, obviously. My last question, truly, being that we're almost at the end of Black History Month, is why is history important? And why is Black history especially important?
Well, everybody ought to know their own history, whether it's black, white, red, yellow, or brown. You need to know where you came from. You need to understand your roots, because if you believe that Black history began with slave ships coming to America, then you are missing a whole wealth of stories.
Right.
So you're just understanding just the tip of the iceberg of your own history. So it's important. Black History Month, of course, started out as Negro History Week and then Negro History Month, because our story was simply not being told.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a historian somewhere that says, we need to know this, because you're not reading in your classroom about all the inventions that were invented by Black men and women, even today, from the cell phone to the COVID vaccine. We fought in every single war that America's ever had.
Absolutely.
We built the country, we built the South, we built manufacturing. We were there, and it's important because culture and society would like to tell you that you're the problem, the Negro problem. The greatest problem in America today is a Negro problem. And so what is being taught is that you're a problem, little Black girl, little Black boy, you're a problem. So that's why we can kill you. We can kill you in your house. We can kill you in the church. We can kill you in a parking lot. We can kill you going to the store, getting iced tea and Skittles. We can kill you anywhere. Even if you just say, as George Floyd did, yes, sir, no, sir, I didn't resist arrest, and still he ended up with a knee on his neck and 3 policemen holding him down.
Mm-hmm.
And so since you're the problem, we have to get rid of the problem. We don't need the problem. We need to push the problem into specific zip codes, and you need to live there because you're a problem. And that's why our jails are filled. Our jails are filled with problem people. And the majority of them are African American. So culture and society has decided that you're a problem. And so we have to look at our history and look at our present contributions, because we're not problems. We are problem solvers. When you needed a traffic light, we solved that problem. When you needed to have the cotton gin so that the cotton could be prepared at a faster rate for manufacturing, we solved that problem.
Yeah.
When you needed to have a blood bank in World War II or World War I, whichever one it was in, we saw Charles Drew solve that problem. When you needed to have someone to figure out to develop the first home security system, the rudiments of the home security, we solved that problem. We solved the cell phone problem. The rudiments and all of the things that went into building the cell phone. There are Black people at the bottom of that process. We solved that problem. And so we have been problem solvers. We are not the problem. We have been problem solvers. And what happens is culture and society are afraid of our problem solving capabilities. And so if I'm afraid of your problem solving capabilities, then we need to be able to control this.
Mm.
We need to take you out. We don't feel like we want to compete against you. So I can eliminate you. And not only can I eliminate you, I can make it right to eliminate you. And then I'm going to convince you that you need to eliminate yourself.
That's it right there.
So I don't really have to fight you now. I just, wait for you to stay drunk all the time or take drugs and, self-medicate and just take yourself out of the game. And too many people take themselves out of the game. Out of the game. So our history reminds us of who we are. We are descendants of kings and queens. The first universities were built by our ancestors. Our ancestors developed language long before Europe was out of the caves. Our ancestors built the pyramids, and our ancestors made the Nile, cultivated valleys. Our ancestors were architects and they were scientists when people were just trying to figure out 1 + 1 = 2. And so we need to know that, because if you understand where you come from, we come from good stock. We come from builders, then scientists, inventors, innovators, creatives. We are the masters of the arts of painting and singing and dancing. Yes. This is where you came from, little boy, little girl. And so this also tells you where you can go. You are not defined by the definitions of people who don't respect you and may never respect you. You are defined by what God says you are. You are created in the image of God. Look in the mirror and say, I am created in the image of God. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes, you are. You are smart. You are special. And you are so special that Jesus died on the cross for you. For you. That's how special you are. And so the messaging is important. The messaging is important. Words are important. You need to see yourself in the eyes of God and not just in the eyes of society and culture. And so when you read somebody else's reflections of who they think you are, then they consider you, Black woman, to be a hoe or a mammy. You are suited to raise other people's children, or you suited to satisfy the needs of men. You understand what I'm saying? But that's not who you are. And that's not what you were created to be. You have to sift down the enslaved messages that have been passed down from generation to generation and find your queenliness and pull it up. And pull it up. I love what I heard about Charlene Galt, and when Charlene Galt was the first woman to integrate University of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, one of those schools. And they said, well, how did you, that people were screaming at you when you went to school in those days. They were standing on both sides of the street. You had to have the National Guard take you in the classroom, all of that. Woo, that was a horrific time. Mm-hmm. And she said, I just did what my parents taught me to do. I put a crown on my head and walked like the princess that I am. Ah, yes. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to pull up your queenliness from somewhere, put on that, invisible crown and walk with your shoulders straight and your head high. And you got to sit up in class. Hey, somebody, because I know who I am and I know where I came from and I have an idea of where I can go. Not because you give me permission to go. My talents and gifts will take me there, because the Bible tells me that my gifts will make room for me. I'm not asking you to do anything for you. I'm just asking you to open the door. That's what James Brown said. Didn't he say that? He said, just open the door. I go get it myself.
Yes, he did.
That's all. You just show me where it is. I can handle it. I can take it. And so the history is important because it informs our present. It reminds us of who we are, and it helps us to understand of who we can be. We will not be less than our ancestors. As Maya Angelou says, we will be our ancestors' dream, not our ancestors' nightmare.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Maya Angelou. Let me tell you about Amanda Gorman. We will see the light if we're brave enough to see it. Mm. I know old poets and young poets too, so
Of course, no doubt
I
about
read them all, and that's why our history is important because it does inform our present. Don't ever forget who you are. Don't ever forget who created you, and make your ancestors proud. You stand on their shoulders every single day. You are writing new epistles that one day others will read and say, "Wow, I thank you for what you did, because what you did helped me to be where I am today."
drops the mic. This has been a wonderful experience for me. I want to thank you, and I'm really humbled actually to even be speaking with you. So thank you for taking the time to be a part of this Ask an Elder series. I know that whoever's tuning in, whether it's just my twin sister who's in the next door, or if it's anybody else across the country, that you definitely dropped a lot of nuggets and gems that are impactful. So I want to thank you for giving us your time. And I'm also praying for Texas because I do know and am familiar with what is going on. So my prayers go out to that state specifically. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope it was a blessing, or at least a conversation starter along the way. This has been a joy to share. I love to share, especially with your generation, Kiara, because one day I know that you will turn around and share with those who are coming behind you.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.